People do not like change, and if there is one thing that Project Cars 3 is doing, it's changing. This is not a run-of-the-mill sequel or follow-up, but rather a deep reconsidering of what Project Cars as a series can be. But with change comes concern, there's worry, there's doubt, and after the game's initial reveal, Slightly Mad Studios have had some convincing to do. If there's one thing that Project Cars 3 absolutely has going for it, having gone hands-on with the game, it's the fact that it has vastly improved handling when playing with a gamepad. The first two games both seemingly put racing wheels as their first priority and then left gamepad controls as a bit of an afterthought. I mean, that's not really true, the second game was meant to be a big improvement, but they never felt great and fun to drive. In Project Cars 3, gamepad can finally be a real and meaningful option for anybody that wants to pick up and play the game. The cars all just feel so much tighter to control. There's no longer this strange kind of detachment and feeling of the cars wobbling back and forth, going back to the direction that they want to go in and not the direction that you want to go in. It is just so much more enjoyable and predictable to race with. Of course, die-hard sim racers will obviously still want to plug in a racing wheel. That massive step forward for the series goes hand in hand with some other changes across the game designed to make Project Cars 3 feel more inviting to newcomers. While I really enjoyed seeing the sprawling career structure of Project Cars 2, letting you move realistically through the different racing categories, it wasn't necessarily the best fit for an actual video game and became a bit of a chore for me. Project Cars 3 trades that in for something much more game-like and straightforward. There's now cars that you buy and then upgrade through the career, starting off with road cars and working up through faster road cars, hypercars and into GT categories up to the pointier end of motorsports. There's events that are grouped together thematically instead of in championships where points are handed out after each race. In that way, Project Cars 3 has given up on some of its own philosophy to follow that of Gran Turismo and Forza Motorsport instead. It certainly feels like Project Cars 3 is trying to make a more serious play to fans of those console exclusives, especially in terms of how refined and slick it looks. But curiously, when you get out on track, there's actually more shades of Drive Club or Grid. You'll obviously still want to try and win the races you take part in, but through the career you'll have race objectives to perform, X amount of clean overtakes, draft another car for a certain distance, reach top speed, and so on and so forth. Don't think that this means that Project Cars 3 is trading in all of its sim racing credentials though. There's still a solid simulation running under the hood, and the game asks you to give up some of the assists that you might expect from other games. As in the first two games, there's no rewind feature, so if your race is going badly, it's either a case of starting over or of accepting the need to fight back and focusing instead on ticking off those objectives. Intriguingly, the racing line has also met an end, with this notorious crutch of the racing genre being instead replaced by a set of markers to indicate where you should brake, where to turn and hit the apex, and where you should aim to have your car on exit. These markers, which can be turned off if you would rather go completely naked, float above the track, asking you to try and hit each one in order to master a corner. While they are great in concept and similar to the cornering cones found in GT Sport, they don't really seem to adjust to the different racing categories, and they give far too much leeway for speed and positioning. This is presumably so that you can still try and hit all three while battling and for that accessibility factor, but I didn't always feel like I'd mastered a corner, despite what the game was telling me. Speaking of those different categories, those have also kind of ended up in the bin. Working your way through the career, you'll see that cars are now grouped together in made-up categories like Road A and GTC. That's fine as an overall indicator of relative pace, but when you head out on track creating a race with cars all in the same class, it can lead to some wildly different racing characteristics. I'm talking American stock cars going up against GT cars here, with vehicles that are strangely mixed up in acceleration, top speed and cornering ability. There is definitely some balancing work to be done here, and that is one of the notes that Slightly Mad Studios have given us, but it can lead to some custom races that will seesaw from corner to corner. Sim racing fans will also be disappointed to see that practice sessions and qualifying go by the wayside, just as there is no fuel consumption and no tyre wear in the game, both of which mean there are also no pit stops. Now, sure, I won't miss the pain of having to warm up tyres, or more accurately, the pain of not having this be an option, but race strategy and knowing when to pit, when to push, when to save your tyres is such a big part of motorsports. No, they're not necessarily particularly glamorous, but for a series that has traditionally geared itself towards sim racing fans, to now omit these even as an option is just so strange. And it's things like this that have had my thoughts on Project Cars 3 swinging back and forth following its announcement and while previewing the game. I really like that it's now got palatable gamepad controls, which is handy because I don't actually have a racing wheel setup at the moment. I also like that the shift away from having a racing line is there, and there's an appeal to the more straightforward career. But it's just a bit odd that a series built with sim racers in mind, a game that rode that early wave of esports, has put some of the key elements that are really needed for that to one side. And who knows, maybe this is the right step forward for the series to reach a wider audience. Slightly Mad will have all kinds of metrics showing engagement across all the different areas of their games. There's focus testing and marketing research, and there is absolutely space in the racing genre for a game like this right now. So, people don't like change, but that doesn't necessarily mean that change is bad. It's just, it's going to be a bit different, isn't it? That's all for this video, but hopefully you have found it informative and enjoyed what you've seen in the background. Project Cars 3 is out on the 28th of August for PlayStation 4, Xbox One and PC, and we will obviously be coming up with a review for this game as we get up to that date. In the meantime, make sure to like, subscribe, share this video and even click the bell button, and hopefully we will see you again soon. Goodbye!
Nicely done. A podium finish, well deserved.